Well, hello and welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. Your English will improve today. My name is Gabe. I have got this song in my head. You know what? Music is awesome. Plain and simple. That's it. We're done here today. The lesson is over. Mic drop. I mean, it's true, right? You may not like the same kind of music as the person next to you, but you have to like some kind of music. Well, we could go many different angles in discussing music, but today the lesson is how we listen to music. So how do you listen to music? An online streaming app like Spotify? Do you watch music videos on YouTube? Well, our lesson will take us through 7 or 8 different ways to enjoy music, and some are ways that nobody does anymore. And now, friends, without further ado, the history of how we listen to music.
How we listen to music. The experience of enjoying music has changed through the years. People used to have to listen to music live, but technology has made noticeable changes in how we experience music. The first music players. American inventor Thomas Edison created the first machine that could record and play music, called the phonograph. But this was soon replaced by the gramophone, which played music recorded on flat discs called records. Many of the first records were made of glass, but over time, people started making them out of vinyl, a type of plastic.
Michelle, my belle. Our lesson's all about music, so all these songs keep popping into my head. Rebecca, our lesson is how we listen to music, so how do you listen to music most?
Oh, I love music. You know, once upon a time, many years ago, I used to use tapes to listen to music. We'll talk about those later. Then I graduated to CDs. And now I usually stream my music. I listen to it on my computer or my phone.
So many different ways to listen to music these days. We see here the experience of enjoying music has changed through the years. And sometimes it is fun to take a look back through history about how things have developed. So right now we're going to look at a couple of different things in musical history or technological musical history, right? We read people used to have to listen to music live, but technology has made noticeable changes in how we experience music. But Rebecca, I mean, that's a great idea, isn't it? Listening to music live. Don't you like listening to music live?
I do. I very much enjoy listening to live music. You know, sometimes you might go to a coffee shop and they'll have a live band or a restaurant and they have live music, and it's very enjoyable. It creates a nice atmosphere.
Yeah, and of course the technology that bands use these days is very different from before, but the idea is the same. Nothing can replace that feeling of being somewhere live listening to music. But before we continue here, let's take a look at a phrase in this sentence, to make changes. Our lesson says technology has made noticeable changes. To make changes means to develop or adjust in some way.
For example, if I want to get in shape, I really need to make some changes, some big changes to my exercise routine.
If I'm going to get in shape, I need to make some changes to my diet. Well, friends, think of another way to use that phrase. Our lesson is talking about music, and technology has made noticeable changes. Let's take a look at this first section called the first music players. What do we read here?
American inventor Thomas Edison created the first machine that could record and play music, called the phonograph. Now, I don't often see those these days.
You know, you might be able to see them some places.
Like in a museum?
Like in a museum. Or in this picture right here. But otherwise, yeah, there are no phonographs around. I'm sure they would be pretty expensive to buy because they are antiques. Here's another picture. This is a gramophone. That appears in the next sentence. But this was soon replaced by the gramophone, which played music recorded on flat discs called records. So perhaps the first record player, right? You might think it looks similar to the phonograph, and it does with that huge thing that looks like a horn, right? But the gramophone and phonographs were a little bit different.
You know, my parents actually have a few records.
Yeah?
When I was very, very, very little, we used to listen to music using records. We had a record player. It looked very different from the gramophone, but it still played records.
Right. Maybe it was made more recently than the gramophones. But records are coming back, right? We just talked about that last year. Many of the first records were made of glass, something I did not know. But over time, people started making them out of vinyl, a type of plastic. And that's the kind of record that I'm used to seeing. It's black, it's got grooves in it. That material is called vinyl. But let's take a look at this phrase here, over time. Over time, this means gradually during a long period.
For example, we know that you're all practicing English, you're studying English, and you might think, oh, my English isn't very good. Well, I'm here to tell you, over time, your English will get better and better if you practice.
Exactly. Your English will improve today and over time a lot more. Okay, so far we've talked about actually 4 different kinds of musical technology pieces. The phonograph, gramophone, this thing made out of glass, and now, of course, the vinyl records. We have more to learn later, but right now we're going to learn about some technology terms. Rebecca, you love technology, right?
I love it.
Well, at least we love the info cloud.
Hello, friends. Welcome to InfoCloud. There are many common English expressions that mention technology that we don't really use anymore.
For example, younger native speakers of English may not know why we use the phrasal verb tune out, which means to not listen to something.
That expression comes from radio, where you used a tuner to tune in or out of different radio frequencies to listen to programs.
Or when someone has repeated the same information over and over again, we might use the expression sound like a broken record.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but you need more sleep.
A record player moves a needle along the grooves of a record to play music. If a record was broken, it would only play a certain part over and over.
This expression can be used to describe yourself repeating information or when others repeat something multiple times.
Let's look at one more. Ringing off the hook. If someone says, my phone is ringing off the hook, they are getting lots of calls.
The receiver of a phone rested on a hook or cradle. If it rang too much, it would fall off.
Welcome back to Studio Classroom. We all hear so much music every day, or at least every week, right? Music is all around us. How do you listen to music? In our lesson, we've talked about the phonograph and the gramophone, and we're going to start learning about the radio and tapes, different kinds of tapes. So keep your ears open and pay attention for some new words and phrases that we're going to talk about as well coming up next.
How we listen to music. Radio. Radio technology took off in the 1920s, and a huge number of American families bought radios. On the radio, music was mixed with news, sports scores, comedy, and more. Some people attribute the rise of popular music to top 40 stations from the 1950s. Tapes. In 1958, the RCA tape cartridge was released. This was the first technology to use magnetic tape to record sound for home use. It only lasted until around 1964, when it was replaced by the 8-track tape. These, in turn, were replaced by the much smaller cassettes in the late 1960s and the 1970s. These received a huge boost from the release of Sony's Walkman, a portable tape player, in 1979.
Now let's continue on here with the section about radios, the next piece of musical technology. Radio technology took off in the 1920s, and a huge number of American families bought radios. Let's take a look at that useful phrase at the beginning of that sentence, to take off. It might make you think of an airplane. That's true, an airplane takes off into the sky, right? But this here in our lesson means to suddenly start to become successful or popular.
For example, there has been a lot of discussion over the years about building flying cars, but this idea hasn't quite taken off yet. So we've talked about it, or people have talked about it, but there really aren't any flying cars yet.
That's right. It hasn't become a reality. It hasn't really taken off. But movies about flying cars kind of took off a little while ago.
Right.
You know?
Well, there's definitely videos or movies about flying cars, but I don't really see a lot of flying cars on the streets.
Yeah.
Actually, I see none.
Exactly. Well, because they're in the air. No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
All right. So radios, of course, took off. This technology took off a long time ago, 100 years ago. And I found kind of a fun picture because radios have taken on different shapes over the years, right? And there's a picture of this guy and his baby in this radio, and I didn't realize how big the speakers were back then. He has sit his baby inside this speaker. Isn't that great?
Ooh, that is really great, and that is really cute. That baby is really cute, actually.
The baby seems kind of grumpy, but the dad's really happy.
But the baby's still cute. Great picture.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, we read here on the radio. Music was mixed with the news, sports scores, comedy, and more. You know, this reminds me, when I lived back in America, back in the States, my very first car did not have a CD player, and it did not have a cassette player, so the only thing I could listen to was the radio. Yeah, I used to listen to the radio a lot.
But you know what, Rebecca? Like, a lot of people still listen to the radio, right? When they're on their way to work or on the way back from work or on the way somewhere. There are still a lot of radio stations that are very popular, and you can even listen to the radio online now. And so it hasn't gone out of use, I guess. It's not outdated. Perhaps that radio in that picture was outdated, but the idea of listening to radio is not outdated.
Well, no, of course not. And actually, it can be a great way to listen to music, or, you know, you can listen to the news on the radio. I used to enjoy listening to the news and kind of being updated on what was going on around the world.
Exactly, and there's so many good radio shows still out there. But we see here, some people attribute the rise of popular music to top 40 stations from the 1950s. That is, the most popular, the 40 most popular songs in the 1950s. Let's take a look at that phrase, the rise of something. That is the process of becoming famous or successful.
And of course, when we talk about the rise, you know, it can refer to, well, like you were saying, Gabe, how things become popular, like the rise of rock and roll music, or the rise of, you know, watching television or watching movies. So you can use this word when talking about anything that's becoming popular.
And now, friends, let's talk about tapes, okay? The RCA tape cartridge was released in 1958. Let's jump down a couple of lines. We're learning about the 8-track tape. That's a different kind of tape. And in case you're wondering what that looks like, it's kind of a square thing. And I have not seen an 8-track tape before in person, but I have seen and used cassette tapes. Okay, these in turn were replaced by the much smaller cassettes in the late 1960s and the 70s. So in turn there in that sentence, that's also another phrase to look at. That you use this to show an action or event was the result of a previous one. These cassettes were a result of the 8-track tape.
That's right. Well, right now it's time for a song. Let's go listen to a song.
It's an important decision.
I have an important decision to make. It's not easy, no, it's not a piece of cake. Put yourself in my shoes, I need your opinion too. Together there's less of a chance we will make a mistake. Come on, guys. Should I buy it now or should I wait? Should I go out with friends to a movie at 8 o'clock? Gotta turn my brain on, weigh the pros and the cons, but I need to make a decision before it's too late. Who do you love? Who do you hold dear? How do you know what is right? Do you think through all those voices you hear? How can you live in the light? Do I play music for work or fun, or to be a star? Write a song with piano or play the guitar? That's right, life's like a song. Will you sing along? I believe that with you we can really go far. We have an important decision to make, oh yeah. It's not easy, no, it's not a piece of cake. But life's like a song, will you sing along? Together there's less of a chance we will make a mistake. With you here there's less of a chance I will make a mistake.
Well, what kind of important decisions do you need to make? It's fun that now you can enjoy listening to music here at Studio Classroom as well. So today we've talked about the phonograph, the gramophone, the radio, different kinds of tapes. What are we going to learn about next time? Be sure to join us then, right here on Studio Classroom.